and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. Today I'm going over what I have read in September, my September wrap up, and it hasn't been the bestest reading month for me. So normally I manage definitely over 10 books, but anything up to sort of like 15, 16 books. This month I've read 5. I'm on my 6th, and I have one more I've definitely got to read for book club, but I've read 5 books. It's going to be a lot shorter this month, but I've been busy because it's been David's 30th birthday. Happy birthday, David. It was my boyfriend's 30th birthday yesterday. I bought him a trip to Disneyland Paris. He cried. It was beautiful. We're going in October, so I'm all excited about that. But anyway, never mind that. I'm going to get into the books that I've read this month. So the first book that I started in August but I didn't finish is Maeve Binchy, Tara Road. I love Maeve Binchy. I've gone on about her in the past. She is one of my guilty pleasures, and I love sitting down with a Maeve Binchy book and just getting to know all the characters. This I enjoyed. It was long. It was really, really long. It was over 600 pages. It was 639 pages, and I do feel this could have been half the length. I love a family saga, and I love reading about like the monotony of family life, but this was just a bit too much for me. I don't know if this is much longer than any of her other books, but I've never felt that sort of when I've gone to a Maeve Binchy book in the past and picked it up. So although I enjoyed it and I love the story, again love the characters, she creates such beautiful, wonderful characters, this was just a little bit too long for me, and I gave it, I think I may even have given it 2 stars, which still means that it was okay, but it just wasn't my favourite Maeve Binchy because it was a bit too long. The next book I read was Stardust, which I read on my Kindle for my radio book club. Stardust is a book that's been made into a film in 2007, which is disgustingly almost 10 years ago. I didn't even know that it was a book before it was a film, and when I found out it was a book, I was like, oh, lovely, let's go to that. It is slightly different to the film, but I still enjoyed it. I haven't really read much fantasy in my life, and this was a really nice book that eased me into it. Obviously I was familiar with the story because of the film. The film is one of my favourite films. It's my father's favoritist film. And I was familiar with the story, so it wasn't so hard to follow in that aspect. There's slight differences which were nice because I didn't just want to reread a script of the film. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. It didn't make me want to think, oh my god, I've got to pick up, the next book I pick up has got to be fantasy. But I did enjoy it, and it did make me think, oh, maybe I will give fantasy a bit more of a go. That was the second book. So my plans for September were to read quite a lot of non-fiction. I don't really read a lot of non-fiction, and when I do read it, I really enjoy it, but I just don't really get a chance to. So I just so happened to be in the library, and all the books I was picking up happened to be non-fiction. So I thought, well, let's make September a non-fiction reading month, which I think in part is why I haven't read as much this month, because I feel like when you're reading non-fiction, it doesn't wash over you as much as like a novel or fiction would. So it's not like just taking in a story and things like that. You actually have to take in information to retain. Not that my books were really like heavily educational, but I just feel like they take a bit more processing when I'm reading, so I think that's another reason why I haven't read as much this month. So the first non-fiction book I read is Lost Cat, A True Story of Love, Desperation and GPS Technology by Caroline Paul. So this is a book about a lady who her cat goes missing, and when she returns, the cat returns after 3 weeks. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the cat. She's not thin where she's been locked away or anything like that. She's just as happy, and she just turns up like she left 2 hours ago. And the author becomes very, very interested in where her cat's been, fits her with GPS technology, thinking that she's just going to see this one straight line to this sort of haven she's going to, and she's not. The GPS is all over the place. Then she decides to fit a little camera on her collar and things like that, and it's a really nice book for cat lovers. It's beautiful inside. It is illustrated by the author's wife, so it's interspersed with all these lovely, lovely, look at that, lovely drawings, and just really, really pretty. And just being a cat lover, I just really, really liked reading this. It was really sweet. Just hearing about the, look at her, little kitty. Just reading about the relationship between the cat and how much she missed her when the cat had gone and when she returned and things like that. And it was just all things that I could so like familiarise myself with and be I was there with her. So yeah, that was a really, really good, just little non-fiction book. Just a new type of non-fiction, I guess, because it wasn't a novel, it was true life, but it didn't feel like hard work. So that was really good, and I did enjoy that. I gave that 3 stars, and the drawings alone are just beautiful. I just love the drawings. Now I can't find any. Lovely. The next book I read was from my online book club, which we will be discussing tomorrow, and that is Philomena by Martin Sixsmith. This book was not what I thought it was going to be. I haven't seen the film Philomena. This is the film front cover, and I've since learned that the book used to be called The Lost Child of Philomena Lee. And it's since been rebranded as Philomena after the film. So when I picked this book up, the first chapter is about, this isn't giving any spoilers away, this is what the book is about. It's about a woman who had a child outside of wedlock in 1952 in Ireland, and she wasn't allowed to keep it. It was so frowned upon, and her family sent her away to a nunnery, a convent where she spent time with nuns. She brought up her son Anthony until he was 3, when he was adopted by an American family and taken over to America. It is heartbreaking, the sort of treatment they get, and just to think that has happened in like someone's lifetime. Like, these people are still alive, and this is the sort of thing that happened to them. It's just heartbreaking for me that people could treat other people in such a way. The first chapter was all about Philomena and her being at the convent, and Anthony being taken away from her, and then it flips to Anthony's life. So this much I would say is Philomena's life. This much is Anthony's life. Now, I much preferred Philomena's life. I don't know if it was because it was set in Ireland, which is like a familiar place to me, as opposed to Anthony's life, which was set in America. These are real people, so I have to be very careful. I much preferred the character of Philomena rather than Anthony, who actually gets renamed as Michael. So Anthony is no more, he is Michael. And I just found that I didn't think Michael was a very nice person, and he sort of like was a bit down. He does very well in his professional life and things, but I almost feel like he sort of like was using the excuse of the fact that he didn't know his mother for why he was such a horrible person, and I don't know if that should be an excuse for why you can be a horrible person. He wasn't like evil or anything, but the way he treated other people I didn't think was very fair. Now, it's hard because these are real people, and I'm aware this isn't a novel. I did enjoy this, and I do want to see the film. I've heard that the film is a lot more Philomena based, which is what I thought it would be like. That's what I thought this book was about. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it. I found it interesting, and as I said, I was shocked by some of the things that have happened in this book that have actually happened in real life. And it was heartbreaking some parts, but yeah, so I gave this 3 stars, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the film a bit. The last book that I have completed is Back in Time for Dinner by Mary Gwynn. Now, as I said in my September TBR video, I don't have a ponytail today, by the way, it feels quite fun. Me and David watched the series of this, Back in Time for Dinner. I think it was on BBC Two, and it was about a family, the Robshaws, I think they're called. There is Mr. Robshaw and Giles Corran on the back. They decided to get involved in what I guess is a social experiment where they transformed their home on a sort of like weekly, it might have been fortnightly basis, into a different decade. So they started in the 50s, and they had to eat the food of the 50s, prepare it in the way that decade had prepared it, go shopping in the way that the decade had gone shopping, and just like entertain themselves with various things from that decade. So we loved the series. We really, really enjoyed the series. We came to it sort of like in the 80s, and we were like, oh my god, we've got to watch all this. So we went back and watched the 50s, 60s, 70s, then the 80s, then the 90s, and then they had a sort of like roundup of what's to come. I didn't realise there was a book accompaniment to this series, but saw this in the library and was like, David, look, this is what we read. And I love this book just as much as I love the series. The series was so accessible and didn't like ram it down your throat or anything. It wasn't like a massive long history lesson. It was things that you'd be interested in. Same as this book, and it was tinged with sort of like nostalgia for me as well. Like, there's things that happened in the like early 2000s and the 90s that I remembered, and I was like, yeah, I remember oven dinners throughout the 90s, and I remember microwave meals being an absolute sign of class and things like that, and pot noodles being this revolutionary dinner, and I really enjoyed it. It was great, and I just love anything to do with food, so I quite often will sit and read my way through a cookbook. So this was a slightly different reading experience for me, reading about food in a different way, and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars, and it is my bestest book that I've read this month. So well done, the team behind Back in Time for Dinner. Absolutely love this. The next book that I've started but I haven't finished is Yes Please by Amy Poehler. So Amy Poehler is an American actress. She's in Parks and Recreations. I believe she was on Saturday Night Live for a long time, but I hate that programme, so I don't watch it. And she's a scriptwriter and like improviser and things like that. This book got the 2014 Goodreads Humour book, so I'd been sort of like thinking I wanted to read it for a while. I hadn't seen anything with Amy Poehler in, but my boyfriend loves Parks and Recreations and I've got into it a bit, so now I feel like familiar with her. She also played the cool mum in Mean Girls, Regina George's mum, so she looks well. Like, in my head that woman is really old, and that film is like an old film as well, so that is her. I'm only like 15 pages in, but I'm really enjoying it. It's set out lovely. It's a really, really heavy book, and it's all like lovely paper, like the paper that the photos are printed off, and it's just got photos throughout. And I'm looking forward to reading this, and I don't think that will take me long. So yeah, I haven't got an opinion on this yet, but I'm looking forward to this. The last book that I do have to read this month, so eventually I'm going to have read 7 books this month, hopefully, is Yes Man by Danny Wallace. I'm reading this for my book club at work. I've read this before and I loved it, and I'm looking forward to reading it again. So those are the books that I have read this month. 5 books. On to 6, we'll hopefully get 7 done. Bit disappointing, Lauren, but I'm sure I will get much more reading done in October. So thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you've got any comments, I would love to have a chat with you in the comments, so just comment below. If you've read any of these books and enjoyed them, let me know. And if you haven't subscribed already, then do subscribe. I'm on 93 subscribers, and when I get to 100 subscribers, I'm going to do the infamous bookshelf tour. So if you like this and you would like to see a bookshelf tour, then do give me a subscribe, and I'll see you all again next week.